going here and kind of let some people join. Hello, and welcome to Glossy's weekly beauty debrief here on LinkedIn. I know we were out last week, but we're so excited to be back this week. I'm Lexi Lebsack, West Coast correspondent here at Glossy, and I'm here with Tatiana Pyle, our managing editor of Glossy, Courtney Marabella, Glossy's social media and audience manager, and thrilled to welcome Emily Jensen to her first LinkedIn audio. She's our brand new senior reporter. Welcome, everyone. So today we are going to be discussing the atmosphere around celebrity hair brands. So as many of you know, Rihanna's Fenty officially entered the hair category this week with 9 SKUs set to sell DTC at first, which happened just on the heels of Beyonce's foray into hair with Sacred, which happened in February. And then, of course, we all know Brooke Shields is also entering the hair care space with a new line called Commence, which we're going to talk about. And we'll also see, if we have time, we'll also touch a little bit on some celebrity hairstylist lines that are coming out, that marketplace, which we know is expanding always. But I want to start with just a little bit of context here. So in January 2024, this year, celebrity-founded beauty brands surpassed $1 billion in sales, according to Nielsen IQ. And this analysis found that celebrity shoppers, so people who are buying celebrity-founded lines, they spend actually a little bit more. So they spend on average a little over $1,000 on beauty and personal care products every year, which is about 1.25 times more than the average buyer. So I would say that's actually a pretty significant increase. So, and year-over-year growth. Now, this isn't a necessarily brand new stat, but Nielsen IQ did have one piece of data to share, and that is that year-over-year growth between 2021 and 2022, sales increased 33% for all of the celebrity brands that they were following. So hopefully when the 2023 numbers come out, we'll see some more growth there for it, but definitely have some growth happening within the celebrity beauty space. And so excited to talk today about hair. So I'm going to start us out today talking a little bit about Fenty. So in case anyone's unfamiliar, I'll kind of go through and then we'll kind of share our POV here, but it's 9 SKUs and they're all centered around a bond building like ingredient called Replenicor 5. And that's basically a mix of amino acids, proteins, etc. There's 1 shampoo, 2 conditioners, a heat protectant, a curl cream, a gel that I got to try at the event this week in LA. And it was kind of like a bouncy gel, like almost like a little jiggly, really great for all textures. And then there's an edge gel as well, which comes in a smaller container. And it's a bit more like a pomade. It has like a very firm texture. And then there's an edge brush. So they did let me know that Rihanna's favorite product and also the hero product is a product called the Comeback Kid, and it's an instant damage repair. So it's basically the bond repair category competition here. The products are in pastel packaging, really cute. I love the flip up lids and the smell is really rich and kind of reminds me of sort of like a very expensive amber based perfume. But Tatiana, Emily, Courtney, I want to hear what you guys think about the line. What were your sort of initial thoughts when it came out? Of course, we know that the major point of differentiation here is that the products are made for everyone, beauty for all, which is a riff on, I guess, sort of the Fenty Beauty, the 40 foundation move that she made when she first launched the line. But and I have a couple more things here, but curious what you guys think. What were your sort of reactions when you heard about the line and your thoughts?
As a Rihanna fan before being a journalist, I'm a huge fan of everything she does. However, I felt like in this new era where we're trying to understand the story behind launches when it comes to celebrities especially, this one kind of felt a little bit disingenuous to what I imagine Rihanna's brand to be. It was a little bit of a shock, but as we've been seeing more content roll out, I know you went to her launch party a few days ago. As we've been seeing just more context around the brand, it has been exciting, and I love that she came to the party with her natural hair, because I don't think I've ever seen her natural hair. And if we saw her natural hair, I didn't know it was hers. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think the branding is amazing. The packaging is really in line with the Fenty franchise or the universe. And one thing that I thought was really, really interesting as I was doing some research on it for this conversation, I saw on Twitter that someone said that at the top of her packaging, there is this like unique braille of sorts, which identifies each product to what it actually is. So once you get the product and you get familiar with what it is, you can feel the top of the cap, and it has a very unique type of like ridged system, which is really cool.
Yeah, I did notice that. The texture on the top of the caps is really nice. It's like they're different kind of patterns. And then I think like the thing I got most excited about at the party when I realized that it was all of the tubs have a flip up top, which I hate battling with a deep conditioner lid or like a gel or like any kind of like the lids. They just drive me crazy. It's like you can never get them to screw back on properly as quickly if your hand's full of, product. So I love the flip up top. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that, Tatiana. I think like as the messaging has sort of come out more, I think it kind of like finally clicked for me with the like beauty for all, because it's like obviously she came out with the 40 Shades of Foundation, and that was a big move in the industry, and she got so much attention here for that. But yeah, I do think that the beauty for all is really interesting because we don't really see lines come out that are made for all hair types and textures. And listen, if we're going to be honest, I feel like some of the lines that have come out in the past that are like, oh, it's for everyone, like they're not really for everyone. They're more for, type 1, 2, and 3 hair, and they don't really kind of like have a product that's like specially made for curly kinky hair. Type 4, I think that this one is a lot like wider in terms of like the different textures, consistencies, and needs that they're filling. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. But and one other thing that I wanted to call out here is that I think it's really smart how Fenty has been sort of approaching the launch on their DTC. So I got sort of a tip from some of the Fenty, some of the insiders who work at the company, and they kind of alluded that there might be a retailer coming very soon. But of course, right now they're launching DTC. But I think that it's interesting that they're on their DTC site right now, even though the products aren't technically available, they are sort of trading access for email addresses and phone numbers to kind of get that community building going. And so you actually can shop the collection right now as long as you enter your information. But yeah, Courtney, Emily, do you guys have any thoughts on Fenty? Anything that you want to call out here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see like how it rolls out. Everything Rihanna does is always super interesting in the beauty space. Like one thing I will say that I was surprised by is when the Fenty beauty brand has moved into other categories, like with the skincare, of course, and the fragrance, it did so in a pretty like edited kind of narrow way. I think the skincare launch, if I'm not mistaken, was just 3 SKUs. So I was kind of surprised with this one that it's with 9 products to start with. That seems like a pretty large line compared to what we're seeing now, with most launches being a bit more narrow. But as both of you were saying, it seems like they are trying to hit hair care for everyone, which is quite challenging to do. So I'm curious if that's a worthwhile strategy for them versus maybe focusing on more, a narrow selection with like for one or a couple of hair types. But again, people love Rihanna. She knows how to drive buzz for it. So I'm curious to see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. And anyone listening here, we would love to hear your thoughts. All you have to do is on the bottom with that little dot that says react, you can just like, put your hand up or and we're happy to, bring it up. And I'd love to hear anyone's POV in the audience here. Tatiana, this is obviously right on the heels of the Sacred line, which I know is also sort of like products that were made for all hair types and textures. And I know that you've reported on this and tried the line. What are your thoughts with, like, these two huge stars releasing lines that are not so different, pretty close together, but curious what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the biggest difference is that throughout Beyonce's career, she's really made an emphasis to talk about her beginnings in the salon, and her mother was a hairstylist, so we kind of always knew, like, if you were, I guess, an OG Beyonce fan, you kind of always knew she had some type of connection to hair care and hairstyling. So when she dropped this collection, it wasn't so much of a surprise. I do think, we've talked about this in this world of celebrity founded brands in general. People are looking a little bit more deep into, why people are starting these brands and what the actual messaging and connection back to who this person's identity is. So I do think in Beyonce's case, it wasn't a shocker. And again, like, I did try some of the products, and I do personally really like them. And I also like the route that she's taken with these products. Granted, a lot of them are, she talks about the actual formulation, and a lot of them are tested by trichologists and in salons as well. And one thing that I really like that she did when she was rolling out the brand, she also did the same thing similar to Fenty Harris. She had some editors and a few key influencers and public figures come into the salon and get a full like wash and style with the products. But I like that she also integrated the use of a trichologist, especially right now in a space where scalp care is, blowing up. It's a huge category. We've seen so many brands kind of focus on this booming category. So I like that she was very intentional and thoughtful about that. It kind of more so legitimizes the brand and its products, in my opinion. And I really like that she took this global approach to the packaging. So I was doing some research, and I saw that the packaging is supposed to mimic the stones of ancient monuments. And you can really see that throughout, the brand storytelling and the color of the actual packaging, which is kind of like a slightly off-white coloring. And if you feel the actual packaging itself, it has this like really cool textured feel. And similar to Fenty, very thoughtful in terms of making sure that the packaging is super accessible for all people. And, I really like it. And I feel like I'm starting to sound a little bit biased now because I just love Beyonce. But no, I think it's a really great band. It's a pretty decent price point. However, unlike Fenty, though, I'm very curious if she's going to go the retail partner route. I don't know which retailer would make the most sense for her. So I'm very curious if it's going to stay DTC or she's going to potentially explore what it would look like to have a partner.
Ooh, that's such a great call out, because you're right. I can't really think of like what retailer Sacred would work in. If anyone listening has any thoughts on like the retailer they think that this would work best in, please raise your hand. We'd love to hear. Obviously, Fenty has, the pathway that we all know, makes a lot of sense, which of course is Sephora. Where would Sacred go? Maybe a department store?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe like a Nordstrom or something, because it's not mass priced, but it's not necessarily too out of reach luxury wise. I think the products range between $30 and $52, so it's pretty much like mid range price. So I could definitely see it because of the quality of the packaging, and it's supposed to give more of a luxurious feel. I could definitely see it going into a Nordstrom of sorts, or maybe a Barney's.
Yeah. Tanya, welcome. If you could just give us one line on who you are and then unmute yourself, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. You're on mute if you're talking. I know it's a little funny. I wonder if I can unmute her. Okay, Tanya, you're muted if you're talking. Yeah, I think, Tatiana, I agree with you. I think that Nordstrom could be, I think that the Sacred line is kind of expensive, but maybe I'm just like maybe I'm a little bit biased, but it's a little bit more expensive than Fenty. But yeah, it's definitely like well above that masstige price point. That's for sure. Tatiana, curious, since you've tried it, do you think that Sacred is like really for all hair types and textures?
I think there are products within the line that could be for all hair types and textures. I definitely think it skews more for textured hair care because she has things that are a bit more heavier for drier, more coilier, curlier hair. But there's things she has like a deep conditioner, which I think anyone can use, or like hair oil, which people can use, and a clarifying shampoo as well, which I think is pretty universal. But when we get into like the rice treatments or, that like deep, not the deep conditioner, but the moisturizing conditioner, it seems to be definitely like more skewed for textured hair care.
Yeah, that's the way Fenty feels as well. I feel like the Edge Control Gel, obviously, the Edge Brush, and then the richer conditioner as well, I feel like are made more for textured hair or potentially damaged or maybe platinum or like deeply processed hair, I think as well. But yeah. Well, I want to pivot a little bit. Let's talk about Brooke Shields. So we're kind of going on the complete opposite side of the spectrum here. Brooke Shields' line is made for mature women, which is very cool. Emily, I know you looked into this. Tell us a little bit about what you found.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brooke Shields launched her hair care line called Commence earlier this month. It's a trio of kind of scalp first hair care products that are more focused on like repair and restoring the hair. There's a leave-in conditioner, a root serum. There is what they're calling an instant shampoo. They're very explicit in the branding that this is not a dry shampoo. They don't like that word dry. So instant shampoo. The price point is actually pretty comparable to Fenty. It's $21 to $30, and similar to Fenty as well. Like one of the big selling points is this proprietary, what they call a Commence complex, made of things like alfalfa extract, acai stem cell. They're supposed to promote, softening the hair, promote growth. And as you said, the target of this line is women over 40. And this line actually came about in part because 3 years ago, Brooke Shields started this media platform called Beginning is Now, specifically for women over 40 to connect and discuss what kind of issues they're facing. That website has now been rebranded as the Commence e-commerce platform with the launch of the line. And in promoting this, Brooke Shields, she's kind of been back in the media spotlight for the past year or so. Last year, she released a documentary with Hulu called Pretty Baby, kind of looking back upon her career. She did a cabaret comedy show at the Carlisle here in New York, and she also has a book coming out sometime in the future. So she's been kind of like back in the spotlight. Obviously, she's known for her hair and as a beauty icon, so this kind of line does make sense in a way. And as you were saying before, too, there's like this real interest in women over 40 as a really valuable beauty consumer. We saw just recently as well, like a new makeup line from Sarah Creel come out that's targeting women over 40. She was one of the formulators behind like Victoria Beckham and other Estee Lauder brands. So there's more recognition from brands that this is a valuable consumer base. I think too, this line is interesting in terms of coming out of this growth of like the skinification of hair has been going on for the past couple of years. Hair care brands kind of targeting the scalp more and talking about ingredients the same way that we've seen in skincare for the past few years. We've also seen more kind of prestige level pricing or masstige type brands take an interest in the hair care space, which has been really dominated by the drugstore aisle for the past few decades, really. So similar to Fenty and Beyonce's Sacred, it's kind of taking a stab at having a more elevated product offering in that kind of hair care space. But what really struck me too about Brooke Shields and like how she's come about launching this line, it reminded me a lot of Pamela Anderson, who has been also like very much in the media for the past year. She released a Netflix documentary last year, Pamela, a Love Story, kind of talking about her career and her life. She went viral last year when she didn't wear makeup to Paris Fashion Week. And then all of that kind of culminated in her then launching this, or being named the co-founder, I should say, of this natural beauty brand called Sansi earlier this year. And it's interesting, these are both kind of cultural beauty icons who really set the beauty standard in their time. Now, in their 50s, coming back, and the more positive way you could say is they're having more kind of agency and being able to tell their stories, after decades of being in the spotlight. The more maybe like cynical take is that they've also their image has been used to sell products for other companies and other brands for many, many years. So now maybe they're saying, why shouldn't we do it ourselves and, use our fame and use our image to sell our own products?
That's super interesting. I think it's really interesting as well, Emily, what you're talking about, how, Brooke built this community. And you said it was over the pandemic, she sort of built it, and then they changed it to an e-com site, right?
Totally, yeah. So that, I'm curious what will happen with that, because from what I can see, like that community beginning as now doesn't exist anymore. It just redirects you straight to the Commence e-commerce site. I don't know if she'll bring that back in any way.
That's very interesting. That was like very much the sort of strategy that some of the other brands that have been launched by celebrities have done in the past as well, including, speaking of women who are mature. Also, I think that's how the Naomi Watts Stripes line came about as well. She had built an entire community online, and then sort of was like, oh, and then here are some products. Really, really interesting. What was your sort of first take on the marketing and branding around this? Do you feel like it's going to be a success? Do you feel like they have enough of a point of difference?
Yeah, I mean, I should say too, I haven't personally tried these, but just looking at them online and how it's positioned, I am a bit surprised, just the design of the packaging. It looks very youthful. It's kind of has this colorful, red, kind of fiery red, peachy orange look to it. Big color, big block lettering, and also with the price point being $21 to $30, I'm kind of surprised to see that for a line that is supposed to be targeting a more mature consumer, which, I would think would maybe be able to spend on a more high-end type product. But again, maybe they're trying to make it accessible to a very broad consumer base. Obviously, Brooke Shields, has, I would imagine, a huge consumer base. Maybe they don't all want a luxury kind of high-end hair care line, or they're not willing to maybe spend that much on hair care, which the hair care line, this disruption of it being with more masstige and prestige brands is still somewhat recent. Maybe there's just not enough of a consumer base to spend a higher price point. So I'm curious to see, her documentary, from what I could see, got a lot of good reception. She did also make a point, which I thought was humorous, in her Allure profile that came out kind of announcing this hair care line, that she has all of her own hair. The journalist did ask explicitly, is this your real hair? And she claimed that it is. So maybe that will help move some product as well.
Oh, interesting. It is kind of funny how that's now become an entirely new thing that journalists can ask about when you launch a hairline. And of course, we saw Beyonce also take to social media when she launched Sacred and kind of gave an in-depth look at how her hair has grown super long. Because of course, we know that, celebrities always are cutting their hair and changing their hair for roles and tours and all of this stuff. So it's so hard to keep your hair healthy when you're constantly sort of in front of the spotlight in that way. That's super interesting. Wow. Well, hopefully that this line does really well. I'm curious to see sort of what the distribution is going to be like. I can only imagine that all of these lines will have to get some sort of retail distribution, but maybe DTC will work for them. I don't know. No. Emily, where do you think that this, if they do go into retail, what would you sort of guess based on your research here as the best retailer for them?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I was thinking that Brooke Shields, Fenty obviously already has a footprint in Sephora, so that seems like a very natural retail partner for her. Brooke Shields, I don't know. There is kind of it seems like a natural aspect to this brand. To be clear, I don't know if they're positioning it as clean or natural explicitly, but maybe somewhere like Credo could work for them, that has that more emphasis on caring for your hair. This isn't a styling brand from what I can see. It's much more about replenishing the hair. So that could work for them, but maybe even like a very mass retailer like Target, since Target is, from what I've seen, like really upping its beauty and wellness offering as well in the past couple of months.
I can see that too. Okay, I want to talk for a sec about celeb lines. There's mostly just one new one that I kind of want to just like bring up. And this is from the celebrity editorial stylist. I'm probably going to say this wrong. James Pieces, is that how you say his last name? But he has this really cool new line called Blue and Green, which of course we see so many celebrity hairstylist lines that are coming out and that have come out through the years. I mean, most of the big lines from Orbe all the way to Way, like these are celebrity hairstylist lines, right? It makes sense that celebrity hairstylists are launching them. They have the platforms, they have the experience, they have the know-how, all of that good stuff. But of course, now we see all these celebrities coming up and giving them some competition. But I want to call out Blue and Green because I think it's really interesting. You know, we see these lines that we just talked about that all have a very, very distinct point of differentiation. And then we have a new one come out and it's called Blue and Green. And again, it's from James Pieces. And he is created this line all about the environment in mind. So there are these little tins and they basically have these little like not capsules. They're like little hard shampoo and little hard conditioners. And then there's a solid, like a tub of solid oil as well. So we see sort of the completely other side of this, which is this like eco line that's coming out that is, I guess, getting a little bit of attention online, but I would say it's been a little bit slower to launch, which of course is hard with the celebrities. But yeah, I wanted to call that one out as well. Tatiana, Emily, Courtney, have you guys seen anything else happening in the hair world right now? Or are there any other brands that you feel like are sort of leading the way here? Of course, we have entire list of celebrities who have started lines, but curious what you guys think are sort of the ones that are leading the way right now.
Well, first off, I think that brand is really cool. When you mentioned it before, I did some research, and I'm very curious to see what the consumer response is going to be to the Blue and Green brand. I love the idea of the sustainability aspect and how there are small little tablets, but I wonder in terms of just functionality, how it's going to work. But in terms of brands that I think are really leading the charge on the celebrity hair care front, I would probably call out a brand like Tracy Ellis Ross. I think she, you know, when I talked a little bit earlier about like really marrying your own identity with the brand, I think, you know, she's known for her big, really voluminous hair. So for her to drop a hair care line, it almost felt like a of course type of moment. So I think she's been doing some really great work, and I know I covered a new product launch a few months ago. She just dropped a curl and iron, so she's kind of foraying into the tools category, which a lot of celebrity brands haven't really dipped their toes into yet. So I think she's probably at the forefront for me, in my personal opinion. But I actually haven't used her products before, so I don't know in terms of efficacy how good they are, but I do think as a brand, I think it's a pretty cool brand. And they've also, if I'm not mistaken, they just hired a new director of social media. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to, you know, embark or continue along their community building aspect via marketing.
That's a great call out. I haven't tried the line either, but I have relatively straight hair. But I have heard from so many people, people with textured hair, people just with sort of like thick and dry hair, that the Pattern Beauty is just amazing. I've heard only really, really, really positive things about it. And I would sort of like also agree with you there, Tatiana. I feel like that's like the biggest one right now. I would also maybe call out the Gabrielle Union Flawless line. She just spoke at one of our summits, and I learned quite a bit about that line. And it seems like it's a bit slow to sort of start, but they seem to have a lot of great products, and the price point is much lower. So in where, Rihanna wanted to create products for all in terms of hitting all textures, Gabrielle Union is really trying to reach people who are shopping in the mass stores and kind of like giving them the quality products that she, thinks that, people who are shopping at all price points should have access to. So I think that's also sort of like a really interesting way to approach the celebrity hair care aspect or sort of mass market as well. That's cool. Emily, what are your thoughts on this?
I would agree about Pattern from Tracee Ellis Ross. Like, it definitely, from what I've seen, has its identity of its own outside of just being like Tracee Ellis Ross's brand. I'm just waiting for Chris Appleton to launch his own hair care brand. He's like, he's like one of the few hairstylists who's like become a celebrity really in his own right in the past couple of years. He does like an ambassadorship with like brands like Shark, like the hair tool line. I don't know, maybe he's just working on that on the side, but he's one of the few stylists I've seen where I'm like, he has enough name recognition that I think he could launch his own line and it could do fairly well.
Yeah, I can see that. I think he did a Color Wow thing as well for a little while. But I also I know we're a little bit over, so I'm just going to leave everyone with one last kind of thought here, which is that there's also another line coming out in the celebrity space that's totally different from the ones we talked about. And that is, if anyone is familiar with actor Mike Coulter, he is the Marvel franchise star behind Luke Cage. He and his wife, Iva, are actually launching a DTC line of hair care products for kids inspired by their daughters. Their daughters have curly hair, and they have not been able to find products for their very specific textured hair. And the line is called Niles and Chaz, and it's priced between $16 and $28, and it's specifically for kids, which I think is really interesting. And of course, if you know Mike Coulter, he actually is bald and doesn't have any hair, so it's sort of a cute little, I don't know, I think it's kind of cute that he's making these products for him and his wife are making these products for their daughters, but we'll see how well they do. But does anyone have any sort of closing thoughts here in the audience here? We'd love to hear from you. Or Tatiana, Emily, Courtney, do you guys have any last thoughts before we log off?
I don't, but I will say I'm really interested to see who is going to continue to innovate in this space from the celebrity aspect. I think a lot of celebrities come in and they put out the same array of SKUs, a conditioner, a shampoo, a cleanser. So I'm curious to see who's going to do the next like cool thing.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Well, I think this was a great conversation. Thank you all for joining us. We are here every Wednesday, except we won't be here next Wednesday because our office is closed. We'll be celebrating Juneteenth. So we'll be back a week from next week with another episode. And make sure, check over on our LinkedIn page now. We have a bunch of images from the Fenty party that happened in LA this week. If you want to check out some of the branding, some of the activations that Riri had. And then, of course, check out glossy.com for all the latest on all things beauty. And we will see you again in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.